invisible. In 1969, I looked at my great-grandmother Catherine through my 8-year-old eyes, and I wondered why everyone was acting as if she was invisible. This frail, elderly woman, whom others described as a fierce force of nature, was sitting in her corner, now silent, somehow lost within a world I couldn't enter and she could not travel out of. Her daughter, my grandmother, cared for her along with my mom and my aunts. Back then, they called it senility. And I remember my mom shared with me that Grandma was getting worse and that she was going to take care of her, and that Grandma was needing a lot of assistance at that point. And I thought, wow, I'm so glad that's not going to happen to me. Until it did. I've been a business leader in the pharmaceutical industry, a not-for-profit health system executive, an executive coach in leadership, and volunteered to work after retirement in disaster relief for the American Red Cross. I began around the age of 61 to notice some changes that just seemed a bit odd to me. So you can understand when these gradual symptoms began occurring, I thought it was due to sleep deprivation, which is really common in the line of disaster work. So I made an appointment with my medical practitioner, and she gave me a complete physical. And so she left the room and she came back. And as a therapist, I thought, I bet you I know what she's gonna do. She's gonna do a cognitive inventory. And so she did. And I scored below the normal range. And she said, that's a change for you. I don't know a lot about the cognitive issues because I'm in family practice as a nurse practitioner, but I know enough to add someone to your care team, and that's a neurologist. I'd like you to see a neurologist. It wasn't until the next year's follow-up with the neurologist that the cognitive testing scores again declined and a lumbar puncture was ordered. The test confirmed that based on the level of amyloid plaques and tau proteins, the diagnosis would be consistent with Alzheimer's. And that's when it's like all the life and all the breath went out of me. And we just looked at each other and thought, wow, what do we do now? How were we going to move forward? And one of the first things we had to do was to tell the kids. Some were, Mom, you are fine. They probably got that wrong. One of our children looked at me and just couldn't bring words. And I just said, this is where I am today. It's likely that things will be changing, but I don't know when. So until then, don't treat me like I'm already at the end of my road. And you get really intentional about enjoying the little things in your life. You just really zone in on what is important. And what was important were my husband, my kids, and how we were going to walk this road together. Because now, instead of being in a national weather-related disaster, I was in my own disaster.
There were a lot of questions in our mind, and it was very helpful in our research finding this organization called the Alzheimer's Association, because they provided a lot of the information that we were looking for.
So I called the Alzheimer's Association. I didn't know what a care consult was, but I found out there are people that are waiting to talk to people like me who have just gotten a diagnosis or talk to a caregiver who may not know what to do. And this woman who was so comforting, she exuded compassion and hope, both of which I was in short supply of. I left this call feeling empowered and focused. I have a plan rather than just succumbing to hopelessness. I'm going to learn more about this disease with their help. Being able to work in this space through the Alzheimer's Association and avail myself to those things like clinical trials or advocacy or education, all of that matters. Right now where we are is in a hopeful state, because I think, unlike my great-grandmother and my grandmother, we know a lot more about Alzheimer's than we did when they were around. Those plaques and tangles that are messing up the neurons in my mind, those are not invisible, those are seen, and they can be addressed. And I was a ready candidate to find whatever I needed to do to make every day my best day. These efforts will not change my diagnosis, but it will, and it has, changed me. I began this story speaking through the eyes of an 8-year-old child who watched her great-grandmother being spoken about in hushed tones and seemed to become invisible to others. But I speak to you today, not from those hushed tones of the past. And it matters because those coming behind me are going to walk a path, and I hope that path is better for them than the path I'm walking now. And the path I'm on is far better than those who walked before me. So it's about serving forward with an eye towards those coming behind you.